Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video I have my December wrap up for you. I did do a mid-month wrap up this month, so I will have that linked down below if you want to see what I read in the first half of the month. I did get 10 books done in the second half of the month. I'm gonna say 11 because I am filming this the day before the last day of December, so I think I may finish this last book that I'm reading as well, so I'm gonna count that one as well. And so let's just get right into the books. So I did just want to note, because I've been saying this so often on my channel, that I have been doing a video every day in December. I did skip yesterday. That was mostly because yesterday's video was supposed to be a books I got for Christmas video, but it ended up all of the books that I got were already in my $500 book unboxing that I did a while ago. And so I didn't really want to show you all the same books. I had like 3 other books, but I figure I'll just put those in my next book haul whenever that is. So you'll see those in the new year, but other than that, like, it would have been the exact same. So I just decided to scrap the video and didn't put anything up yesterday. But obviously I'm back today with my December wrap up. So like I said in my mid-month wrap up and in a bunch of other videos, I have had a really hard time reading lately. I don't know why. It's just every time I pick up a physical book, I find I'm putting it down every chapter. I'm not getting into anything. Even audiobooks, I'm kind of like, sometimes I would just rather sit in the quiet than listen to an audiobook, and that just hasn't happened for me, like, ever, pretty much. So it's been super weird. But I do think things picked up quite a bit in the second half of the month. I did get 10 books done, which in a normal like half-month wrap-up for me is not a lot. But because Christmas was in there, I think that was pretty good. Because I obviously wasn't really reading on Christmas or Christmas Eve or Boxing Day or any of those days. So I feel like 10 books wasn't terrible. I was sort of hoping towards the end of the year that I would hit the same amount of books I read last year, which was 234. I ended up, I think I'm finishing off at about 225 or 226, which isn't terrible, obviously, but I just kind of was hoping to hit that number. I just didn't quite make it, but maybe next year. And so let's get into the 10 books that I did read in the second half of the month. I kind of dove right into the Christmas books this part of the month because I actually had just finished reading the last book I needed to read for my Bookmas videos at the end of my mid-month wrap-up. So going into this, it was sort of the first time in a while that I've actually gotten to pick whatever book I wanted to read and read it. And so the first one I picked up was All I Want for Christmas by Maggie Knox. This one unfortunately was a disappointment. I think I gave this one 2.5 stars. This one is sort of being marketed as an enemies to lovers romance, and I felt like the emotion that needs to come with that was completely absent in this book. To me, the characters were just pretty indifferent to each other the entire storyline. The entire story is built on constant miscommunications, and I found that really, really irritating. I just thought everything they were doing was stupid, and one of them in this is keeping a secret that they think is such a big deal, and they turn it into this big thing, and realistically I don't think it was even like a big secret. Like, they were just blowing it out of proportion, and it was so ridiculously over dramatized for no reason at all. And I put this in my review when I wrote it, but I found if I could describe this book as anything, it was like those really terrible acting soap operas that come on where they're just like dramatically slapping people in the face, and it's like, you can tell that it's like being acted out, obviously. And I found that that's what this book, the vibes it gave me were that. Like, even the dialogue between the characters sounded so fake and forced, and it was just weird. And I was really sad about that because I feel like this is like the Christmas romance that's been going around the most this year. This is like the one I've seen, you know, at Walmart on the shelves, and like it's just been kind of everywhere, and I just didn't find it was that great. Next was Tangled and Tinsel by Trilina Pucci. I hope I'm saying that right. I have no idea. But this is a reverse harem Christmas novella. I will say I hesitate to call this a novella because it is 250 pages, and to me that is an entire book. That is not a novella. But it's being sold as a novella. And this one I feel like I gave 4 stars to because it was exactly what I was expecting. It wasn't a literary masterpiece by any stretch of the imagination, but it was good for what it was, and it delivered on what it promised, so I was pretty satisfied with that. This one follows an interior decorator who is decorating this house for these guys up in the mountains for a Christmas party when they all get snowed in together. So it's her and these 4 guys, and obviously things go from there. Like I said, pretty much exactly what you would expect from a book like this, so I was happy with what I got. Next was A Very Merry Bromance by Lyssa K. Adams. This is the 5th, I believe, book in the Bromance Book Club series, which I have been enjoying and have been reading all of them and have liked all of them. This one was Colton's story. He is the country music singer of the group, and I really was looking forward to this one. Like I said, I love a good country singer story. I don't know why, just right up my alley. I think it has to do with like the small town vibes that I feel like come with that. But I was really, really excited for this one, especially when I heard that it was a Christmas book because, like I said, I love Christmas, and I'm still on that hunt for the book that is going to change my mind about Christmas romances. But this one wasn't it. I gave this one 3.5 stars. I for sure thought this was going to be my favorite in the series, but it definitely was not. I don't know. I just found like there was so much going on in this that none of it really meshed together. Like, there were so many different things happening and different storylines we're following. Like, we're following him struggling with his career, we're following her and her family, I think, or maybe it's his family. There was like some family drama going on in this. And then on top of that, you're also getting like snippets of the book that Gretchen is reading, and you're also seeing their like relationship stories, but I found that they didn't all interconnect very well. Like, it felt very compartmentalized, like, oh, here's a little snippet of this story, and now here's a snippet of this story, and here's a snippet of this story, and I just didn't like that. It didn't flow as nicely as I would have liked, and so I was a little bit disappointed in this one because, like I said, I do think I had really high hopes for this, knowing that it was my favorite of the book club, and also being a Christmas book, I was super pumped, and I just feel like I was let down a little bit by this one. This month I also read the entire Sutter Lake series by Cowles. I had never read a Cowles book before these. I picked up the audios because I was working a lot this month, and I like to listen to books while I work, and I like to do like series like this because it's very easy to just move along to the next book. And I did end up really enjoying these. They are all small town romances that take place in the same town. They are all following a different couple. So the first book was Beautifully Broken Pieces, and this one follows a girl who has moved to this town to just sort of start over after her mom has died, and she moves to this town and she ends up living in this house on the property of this guy who I want to say he's like the deputy sheriff or something. He's like, he works for the police department basically, and so she ends up living on his property, and because, you know, we have like a sheriff involved in the story, there's sort of a mystery suspense element going on with this. I really enjoyed this one. I gave it 4 stars. I really, really like when small town romances have a character in them that has like a big family that kind of lives on a farm. Like, I don't know why. I think because when I was a kid, I was obsessed with living on a farm. Like, that was what I wanted to do in the long run. Now I know how much work that is and probably wouldn't do that, but I do still like the idea of like raising a big family on a farm. So I really love books that sort of tie that into the story, and this guy definitely had like the big huge family on this, you know, piece of land where they were all kind of living, and I really liked that aspect. The next book in that series was Beautifully Broken Life, which I also really enjoyed, gave it 4 stars. This one follows Tessa, who you see in the first book. She works at the bakery with the main girl in that book, and in this one you're sort of learning about her a little bit. You kind of know that she's hiding from something, but you don't really know what, and she has come to this small town to do it. And one of the best friends of the girl from the first book, Liam, is a famous musician, and he comes to the town to help her get settled originally. So he's in town, meets a few people, and ends up going back to, I would assume, LA, but I don't really know that that's where he goes back to, but he goes back somewhere. And then he comes back in this book because he is now hiding sort of from the paparazzi and the press. He just wants to get away. So he comes to this tiny little town where like hopefully no one will care enough to tell anyone that he's there. And he comes and he ends up meeting Tessa, but obviously she's hiding from something, he's kind of hiding from something, and so it kind of gets a little bit complicated. I really enjoyed this one as well. Like I said, definitely really love this series. I found each story was very unique in the things that it dealt with, and while still having the, you know, consistent theme of the small town, which I really liked. Then I read Make a Wish by Helena Hunting, sort of in between these books. This was an arc. I believe this book comes out in mid-January or so, and this is the 3rd and final book, I believe, in the Spark House series, and I have enjoyed this series. It's not my favorite by Helena. This series follows 3 sisters who have basically inherited this inn and sort of them finding their place within that, and I really liked how these books sort of showed each sister finding their own thing. Like, they didn't just all decide like, okay, you're going to be the front desk manager or you're going to be in charge of this. Like, they truly are finding things that they can do within this existing family business that are connected to their own personal interests and passions. And I really like that aspect of this. I think it's really interesting. And so this one is the third and final sister, which is why I assume this is the last book in the series. This one follows her, and she used to be a nanny for this guy and his really young daughter when he was in his late 20s and she was in her late teens, early 20s. And she was nannying for him, and then she almost kisses him one night, and he basically packs up the next week and leaves. And he's like, no, we're going to move to be with my in-laws. But now it is, I think, 7 years later, and he has come back to this town with his daughter, and he's just like, no, like, I'm ready to do this kind of on my own kind of thing. Like, this is the best place for us. And they've moved back, and they end up bumping into each other at an event at this inn that she's running. And things sort of go from there. Obviously, it's pretty complicated because he is a single dad, and she knows the kid from when she was really little, but the kid doesn't really remember her. And so this one was pretty interesting. I gave this one 3 stars. I did enjoy it. Like I said, not my favorite Helena Hunting book of all times. I find her hockey books are just like really, really a different vibe than this series, and I personally vibe with that vibe better than this one. Then I read Beautifully Broken Spirit, which is the 3rd book in the Sutter Lake series. This one I can't say too much about, I feel like, because a lot of this book is based on spoilers from the other books. But basically this is a brother's best friend sort of romance, still small town. They've sort of grown up together, been friends their whole lives, and now all of a sudden they're sort of in a position where it may become more than that. Like I said, can't say a lot about this one, but I did really enjoy this one as well. I gave it 3.5 stars. There were just a couple little things about this one that I feel like I didn't like as much as the previous books, but I did still enjoy it, but definitely my least favorite of the series. Next was Beautifully Broken Control, which is number 4 in the series. And this one is, again, I feel like the last couple I can't really talk about too much without spoilers. This one is a friend of the guys. 2 of the guys in the first 3 books are best friends with this guy, so you see him around quite a bit in the first books. And then we have a girl who starts working at the bake shop, and everyone can kind of tell she's hiding from something or running from something, but they don't really know what, and obviously they're not going to ask questions, so they don't really know her all too well. And this guy ends up, the best friend sort of decides he's going to move to this town for a little while because he's having all kinds of issues with his business, and he's like, I need to just get away and sort this all out away from my employees kind of thing. And so he comes to this town, ends up meeting her. She wants nothing to do with him, but he's kind of like intrigued because he's one of those guys that just kind of knows everything. He's got access to all these like databases and stuff to like look people up. And so she is like, I'm gonna stay far away from this guy. He's gonna find out my secret and I can't get near him. But he is kind of obsessed with her because he can't figure out anything about her. And so that's sort of how this story goes. I really like this one as well. Gave it 4 stars. Did really enjoy it. I really liked the guy in this one in particular. And lastly for that series, I read Beautifully Broken Redemption, which is the 5th and final book. This one is a marriage of convenience between a girl who is trying to get custody of her niece and nephew, but she sort of has some issues where she thinks the court is not going to take her side, and she really cannot let these kids go to their grandparents. So she is doing everything she can to sort of make herself seem more appealing to the courts. And this guy that she can't stand that works at the shelter that she works at volunteers to marry her because a 2-parent household will look better than a 1-parent household. And at first she's like, no way, like not gonna happen. And then she kind of gets desperate and ends up taking him up on his offer. So it's a marriage of convenience story, obviously, where they end up moving in together with these kids and things go from there. I enjoyed this one a lot. I think this was probably my favorite in the series. I gave it 4 stars as well. Really liked it. Next, I read Next to Never by Penelope Douglas. I figured I would pick this up just on the off chance that I do decide I want to read The Falls Boys, because I keep thinking I don't really want to read that because I think it's really long, and I think that's what's sort of stopping me from reading that, because I did really love the Fallaway series, but I decided I would read this one just to sort of see if maybe, you know, if I do end up reading that, I wanted to have read this one. And I did not like this. I gave it 2 stars. I feel like this was just really misadvertised almost, because the back of the book kind of makes it sound like this is following Quinn's story, and it isn't really. Quinn gets a book in the mail, and it is like a non-PG romance book, but it's about her parents and her family, and I just found that so weird. So instead we're mostly getting the story of her parents and how they got together, and I just really didn't think that that's what I was reading, and so I feel like I was very disappointed by that. I wanted Quinn's story, which I guess she's getting a full book later on maybe, but I don't know. I just feel like I was really let down because this wasn't what I thought it was going to be at all. I will say, like, maybe I'm kind of glad I read it because, like, I feel like I would have thought I was missing out on something if I hadn't read it, but honestly I think I probably could have skipped this and it wouldn't have mattered. But I sort of picked this up just because it was short and I was trying to hit the number of books that I read last year this year, and I'm not gonna make it. I just have sort of accepted that fact at this point. But I tried with this one and just really did not like it. Like I said, I gave it 2 stars. Lastly, I'm going to talk a little bit about the book I'm reading right now because I will probably finish this before the new year and then that will be it. I won't pick up another book before then because as soon as I'm done filming these videos, I'm actually like tearing my room apart and taking all this down and building another bookshelf and like a whole thing. So I won't be reading during that time, but right now I'm currently reading Second Semester by Q.B. Tyler, which is another novella I picked up hoping to sort of get that book number up. And this one I haven't been loving, which I feel like is why it's been taking me so long to read it. I'm about 50% of the way through it. It is the second one in her Campus Tales series. I didn't love the first one, but mostly because I felt like there was quite literally zero plot in it. This one, it has sort of been different because what I don't like about it is more character driven, I guess. The guy in this is her dad's best friend and also like a partner at this law firm that her dad works at, and she's interning there, so she is sort of spending a lot of time with this other guy. And I think I was okay with that idea when I thought that, you know, he was going to meet her and be like, oh, like I've never looked at a girl your age before like this. But he sort of has that vibe, and like people have made comments where it sounds like he sleeps with pretty much every girl in this office that's like a paralegal or an intern or anything. And I feel like that is just really tainting this for me because she doesn't seem special to him, I guess. It's just like she's just the next girl in line pretty much. So I haven't been loving this one as much as I would have liked to, which is sort of making it drag out. But hopefully I will finish this before the new year so that I can add it to my sort of count for the year. Anyway, those are all of the books I read in the second half of December. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below. I will still have one more new book video tomorrow for December, and then that will be it for the year. So again, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next time.